some extent, my work ethic, which you can say is, appreciable, laudable, is also a cover for, not being able to sit still. And I became very aware of that coming out of this experience of near death. When you just work, you sort of almost don't make memories, I think. If all you do is add to your list of to-do things and ask yourself every second of every day, what do I need to get done? What do I need to do? What am I not doing right now that I should be doing? And there are times in life when that's all you can do. If you have a kid with some medical problem, if you have financial challenges, there are times and years in people's lives where all they can do is just go, I can't dwell on my life. I can't put some space in here. I can't meditate. I have to fix something else. I have to make something happen. And I understand that. But the heart attack really made me know that if you just live that way, you don't really live. It's like you weren't here.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you, because she knows a thing or two. So now she's gonna break down. So break down. She's gonna break it down.
Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik.
And I'm Jonathan Cohen.
And welcome to our breakdown, the place where we break things down so that you don't have to. We're just trying to make it easy for you here.
Life is about simplicity.
This is a big one today. This is a really exciting one. Who are we having, Jonathan?
We are having, as a guest, one of the most recently iconic characters in modern television.
I mean, that's a huge statement, and it's entirely accurate. We're going to be talking to Bob Odenkirk. He's known for, Better Call Saul. He is Saul.
Saul Goodman.
He originated that on Breaking Bad. He's also been in many feature films. But what you may not realize about Bob Odenkirk is, he wrote on SNL for years, the Mr. Show with Bob and David. That was him. Also, Deep Cut, Get a Life, if you like that Chris Elliott show.
Also wrote on a recent guest show, The Ben Stiller Show.
Bob is going to be here with his daughter talking about the book that they just wrote, Zillet and Other Important Rhymes, which she illustrated. But we are first going to talk about all things Bob Odenkirk, from his childhood in the Midwest to his journey through comedy and his eventual unexpected success, not just as a comedy actor, but as a dramatic one as well.
He never imagined that he would be a dramatic actor. It's really fascinating how he gets there.
Let's get into it. Break it down. Well, thank you so much for being here. We're both huge fans of yours, and we are both parents of little ones. Well, I guess they're 15 now, but compared to your kids, they are little ones. And we're going to be talking with your daughter, Erin. The book is Zillet and Other Important Rhymes. And I want to talk a little bit about it now, but then I want to talk about it with Erin. I got really, really, I hope this is not a bad comparison. I got super strong Shel Silverstein vibes and Where the Sidewalk Ends vibes.
Oh, no, it's not bad at all. No, those books are the greatest. He's the master, really. It was at times challenging to go, are we trying to live in the same, county that he oversees? But when you understand the origins of our book, I on some level, I couldn't. When you enter an arena where there's these gods, Dr. Seuss and Shel Silverstein, it can be nerve-wracking to ask whether you'd have any right to join in. But I don't know. The origin of our book is so unique. We didn't just sit down and go, let's write kids' rhymes, and who cares about Shel Silverstein? We loved Shel Silverstein, and when my kids were little, we wrote these poems together, quite a few actually, in this book that I made a cover of, old-time rhymes in my awesome artistic way. Yeah, by Dad, cool. Nate, and Erin.
Wow.
And this is just filled with these loose pieces of paper, many of which have three or four poems on them. And I knew that some of them were pretty good. Like, just as a comedy writer, I knew that like there were like 10 or more that had like a good concept, clever point of view, a couple good turns in them. And I always thought, well, I'll just keep it. I mean, I'll keep it, and one day maybe I'll rewrite these, maybe when I'm a grandpa. It'd be fun to add to it or just write more. And can I read one to you?
Sure.
These are that didn't make it into the book, okay?
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot, okay? And this, again, written with a kid. And I haven't read this in 20 years. A blimp flew over my head. On the side was the name Ed. In big letters, it did declare the glory of Ed. I hadn't been aware. But still, I wondered what's all the fuss? Who's this Ed fella? Someone tell me, let's discuss. Then someone tapped me on the shoulder. It's Ed, it's my birthday. I'm 1 year older. It's... So, when my kids were little, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they were 2 years apart. So through those years, we would read a lot of books. And then I would say, let's write a poem because, Mayim, you grew up in Hollywood?
I mean, I started acting when I was, in middle school.
Did you grow up here or?
My parents were transplants from the Bronx. So I say I was raised like it was the 1940s in the Bronx, but in Los Angeles.
Was it a hard thing for you to imagine yourself being an actor or being in show business? Because it was for me. It was really an overcome. Even when I moved to LA after winning an Emmy, I still was like, I shouldn't be here. I'm not good enough. I don't belong in this. And I wanted my kids to think of themselves as the kind of people who might write a book one day. That's the whole impetus of sitting down to writing is, when you read things, even Zillet now in its final form it's such a nice book. It looks so professional. As a kid, you'd think that's for other people who are magical and gifted. And I wanted my kids to see a book on the shelf that they had written that was still stuck on the same shelf as Dr. Seuss, Shel Silverstein, everything else. That was the main initial drive of it.
Well, this feels like a really good place to kind of, get a little more into sort of how you got here as their dad. In addition to Zillet, Jonathan and I have been really, really getting so much from, I know it's not as current as Zillet, but your memoir, comedy, drama. And, one of the things you talk about, which you just sort of, hit on, is this notion of imposter syndrome. And, it's something that many actors experience, many writers experience. But I think in particular, people who don't fit whatever mold has been established, I think in particular, it can kind of, it can be a persistent thread. And your story, both the way you talk about your childhood, you're one of 7, which I think is already, an opportunity for imposter syndrome, because when there's that many humans sort of slotting into the needs of a family, it can be very complicated. But your journey also, Jonathan noted, you're kind of a late bloomer, in each of the venues that you entered. So, you come from the Midwest and kind of like this very classic Catholic, Midwest, like absent dad kind of, archetype. But your journey as a comedian, it's kind of like you tried to follow those grooves, right? Like, oh, people are doing stand-up, like, let's do that. But that wasn't Bob Odenkirk's, that wasn't where you were gonna shine. It wasn't where you kind of were gonna be. So then you ended up, I mean, Jonathan really wanted to talk about like this unbelievable meeting you had with Lorne Michaels, where you were like, I'm going to show up exactly as the person that I am and tell you that I think the show was much better when I was a teenager, which is kind of what we all said. And
I was right.
You were right. No, you were right. Arguably so. But and even still, you write really beautifully about this journey of SNL, that again, for you, it was your thing when it worked. And when it wasn't, it was like, this is not my thing. And, you end up being cast, an actor, right? Like the thing that is really, really, really painfully emotionally difficult to be. I mean, it's a life of rejection until you get that thing. And that thing then led to you having your own show and fame in its own right as something that you weren't even setting out to imagine yourself doing. So it's kind of incredible that you come really full circle as a human to say, like, I'm going to give something of myself with my children that I'm going to put out into the world. So I know I just sort of like summed up your life in 45 seconds, but I wonder if you can talk a little bit about where imposter syndrome sort of lands in all of these arenas for you.
Wow. But that's a huge arc, and it's a very interior arc, deep inside me. And one of the things you nailed is that this book, Zillet, and is really the most personal thing I've ever done. There's no question to me that the second to that would be Mr. Show. Interesting, maybe, but this is like my heart on display, and Mr. Show is my brain and my attitude on display and how I see the world. And of course, Better Call Saul and playing the emotional and deeply written, sensitively written, wonderful scenes that I was given. You have to mind your personal self and feelings and memories and hurts and traumas. You do go into that, and you do share that on some level with people. But the most personal thing is this thing I've come to now, this book of kids' rhymes. As far as imposter syndrome, it's there's a great, comedians in cars. Getting good Jerry Seinfeld. Have you done that, Mayim?
No, I would love to, though. Please put in a good word for me.
Jerry's talking to Gary Shandling, and they're walking through the Comedy Store, and Shandling's like, and I'm up there. I mean, why am I up there? I'm a kid from Arizona. And Gary's like, well, where the hell should you be from? Who cares where you're from? It doesn't mean anything. And that's imposter syndrome right there. And it's so amazing to me that Jerry Seinfeld doesn't have it and never had it in his life. He just was like, what? Well, who do you think? And I think it goes to one of the things I was trying to share with my kids by making this book. Who do you think makes the world? Who do you think is going to be the comedians and the directors and the writers and the politicians and the teachers? And, well, you are. You're going to be all those things. But the imposter syndrome is sort of having a genuine and inner belief that that's possible, that is true, that you will be that. And the only question is, how good will you be at that when you get that chance? Or if, when you put yourself in the place to get that chance, how good will you be? How prepared will you be? That's the only question you should be asking. How can I get more prepared? But the other thing I think is you have to ask yourself, what do I love and what am I good at? Sometimes those things are not exactly the same. You observe that I didn't really pursue dramatic acting. It sort of found me because I loved sketch comedy so much and still do. It's still my favorite thing. I just happen to be maybe, I think, I'm pretty good at that after a long time, but I kind of have some instinct for the dramatic performance, especially if you've got a film camera, which is not quite the same as theatrical. So I don't know what, I say I have less imposter syndrome now, a lot less, but I still have it. And I don't know too many people who don't, but there are some who don't. There are. And they're interesting. And oftentimes they're people who grew up around Hollywood. And so in their world conception, The person across the street is a writer. The person down the street is a director. The woman who babysat them is now on a TV show. So so of course they think, well, yeah. I mean, everybody on my block, what do you mean? Why is it? It's not special. It's just, it's hard to get those jobs, but it's not impossible. It's not, you don't have to be otherworldly. But when you grew up in the Midwest or most places, or I'm more like Shanley in that little story. I'm the guy going, I'm from Naperville, but you don't, there's better people out there. Trust me.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by BetterHelp.
We've all had times in life where deep down we know what we should do and what's good for us, but sometimes our brains can get in the way of that. Like when we're trying to fall asleep, but we're kept awake by racing, unhelpful thoughts. Therapy can help you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. My experience with therapy is that when I have therapy, my thoughts get quieter. They don't keep me up as much. That is the pattern that I need to continue, one of therapeutic processing and understanding. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch at any time for no additional charge. Visit BetterHelp.com/break today. They'll give you 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/break.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Ritual.
You know who's kind of a hot mess? Literally everyone. Perfection's an illusion. Give it up already. And this is coming from a vitamin and supplement company. Ritual knows it's basically impossible to get all the nutrients you need from your diet 100% of the time. So they made a multivitamin that helps you focus on what's important, like filling key nutrient gaps to support foundational health. It has been easy and painless to incorporate Ritual products into my daily routine, and love that they're vegan friendly. Ritual multivitamins are 100% made traceable with high-quality key ingredients in clean, bioavailable forms, so you can trust what you're putting in your body. Their delayed-release capsules are designed to dissolve later in the small intestine, an ideal place to absorb nutrients, and they're non-GMO project-verified, gluten and major allergen-free, and vegan. Ritual's Essential Prenatals high-quality formulation with nature-identical choline and clinically studied methylated folate support babies' neural tube development before and during pregnancy. They contain 350 milligrams vegan, sustainably sourced omega-3 DHA, which is so important to support babies' brain development during pregnancy. A minty or citrus essence in every bottle helps keep things fresh and helps make taking your multis every day actually enjoyable. Instead of striving for perfect health, aim for supporting foundational health.
In great news, Ritual is offering our listeners 30% off during your first month. Visit ritual.com/breakdown to start Ritual or add Essential for Women 18 plus or prenatal to your subscription today.
I think it's more detrimental for kids and young people to think it is an impossibility to dream of being president, senator, famous actor, musician. It's more detrimental to think those things are pretty much impossible than it is detrimental to believe that they're easy and that you deserve that opportunity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think, I can't help but go to the place that is conspicuously missing from your book, which you acknowledge on page 4, I believe, maybe page 3.5, when you say, do I have to keep talking about all of this, everything that you came from? And, I know for me that imposter syndrome also resides in my brain in places where things feel impossible emotionally, meaning that's like it's like where I go to, when I can't imagine something different. I can't imagine a way out, or even when you get success, there's always like something looming of like, but what if, right? What if it all goes away? And, there's a story you tell really in passing about, your dad talking about financial problems that your family was having. And, my father passed, almost 10 years ago. And, my parents were public school teachers, and I did not grow up with a lot of means. And, when I started having this experience of like being on TV. Like I used to say that my dad would like tuck me in at night, like good night, and be like, this could all disappear tomorrow. I just want you to remember, like, and it was like kind of funny. And my dad was he was a poet, and he was a tortured artist. But it was this notion of like, don't get too comfortable. Don't get too comfortable with joy. Don't get too comfortable with happiness. Don't get too comfortable. And, for me, I come from like, Holocaust, looming, in the near distance. So there was a real kind of historical acuteness, but I cannot help but think about the way you describe your dad and the way you describe your mom and what you grew up in. And I wonder if you feel like growing up the way you did makes those fears loom larger, or was it just for you because you were the sensitive artist and all of your siblings have different lives? Like, I don't know.
Oh no, everybody felt those fears. I'm the only one who told everyone about it. There's 7 kids. The others kept their mouths shut. I think they all were warped and tortured and pained by the uncertainty of the house that we lived in and the feeling of things could go, just crack and break and fall apart any second. We also had a lot of laughs. And I think it's important to say that the greatest thing in my childhood was my brothers and sisters. There were 7 of us. I was second oldest. We laughed constantly. We joked around. It was the place I think I put all my fear and anxiety was, well, let's just joke around. And one of the things I loved about Monty Python when I hit on it was it seemed like a similar existential response to life and the uncertainties and challenges of life and humanity and human behavior. I mean, all comedy is some version of that. We're laughing at ourselves. But there was something about Python that spoke to, it said something about the adult world being at its core hypocritical and stupid. And that was a comfort. It was a great comfort to have another adult. Well, I was 11 when I saw it, but have an adult, to me, they were 27 years old when they made that show. But they were adults saying, this is on a grand level and a deep level, nonsense. And nobody knows what they're doing. And that was just greatly comforting. So we had a lot of laughs, but the fears and uncertainties were something we all shared as well. And perhaps, listen, I'll tell you some other thing that I think weighs into this, and I'm not a psychotherapist, but there's a lot of shame when you grow up Catholic. At least, well, I think it's pretty true. There's just shame, original sin, and you're constantly being told as a little baby and a kid that there's Satan and there's God and you're born in sin and you are a shameful creature. You're built to be ashamed. And I think that feeling of shame is just a immovable, radiating sun inside me, radiating shame, that I have to navigate and push against. And so I think that's part of that, obviously in this career that we're in, we are asking for the spotlight to be on us. We want to present our things and share them with people. Well, that automatically feels extra painful. I don't know what you think the components of your childhood are, but I don't know how much you would weigh shame in there.
Well, I mean, I'm, a second generation American Jew. So it's like we do shame really well.
Yes, right?
No, I think, I think there's 2 places that I kind of thought you were going to go with that. And I was obviously not raised Catholic, but, I was raised with very, traditional kind of religious kind of structure, surrounding what's right, what's good.
Yeah.
And But the other thing is, if you grow up in a home with the kind of conflict that that you and I grew up in, there's also this sort of internalized, something's wrong and I have to go out into the world and either pretend that it's not, or, what many of us who are comedians do, is not so much, for me, comedy wasn't about forgetting. It was about getting approval that I couldn't get that same way in my home. And, I discovered Monty Python and Faulty Towers. And, I remember those were the things that everything in the house stopped for, and I grew up, my brother listened to all the Steve Martin records. Like, your book detailed essentially the childhood that, that I kind of followed. There was something very, very particular about, I think when people think of comedy and they want to laugh and they want to have a good time, that's a different kind of comedy than the kind of comedy, let's say, that you're describing with Monty Python, which literally was a window into the depth of humanity that is so tragic that you have to laugh at it. There's different kinds of comedy. And this guy, Jonathan, always wants to be like, let's watch something and laugh. And I'm like, I don't want to laugh. I want to think, and there's such different styles of comedy that you kind of go into.
It's the line in your book that says something to the effect of, all good comedy has anger in it.
Yeah, that's from Eric Idle, actually, which I was so thankful I was able to crib that line and attribute it to him, because then people don't ask me to justify it, although I'll happily justify it. But he said it. He's the one who, when he saw Beyond the Fringe, he said, as a college student, he saw that and he said, wow, this was comedy, but it also had anger in it. And yes, isn't that amazing? And what you say about the meta, Mayim, are you familiar with Tim and Eric Awesome Show?
Yeah, not as much as Jonathan is nodding his head.
See,
more.
To me, that's another example of exactly what you're saying, the Get a Life, Monty Python, the meta quality of the comedy. It's silly on its face, but additionally, as a viewer, you're very aware of, I would say maybe not consciously aware, but subconsciously, almost consciously, right on it's just about over the edge, peeking over, that this is both being funny and making fun of the form, making fun of presentation itself. And there's something you responded to, I responded to, that was another level, right? So we watched all those shows too. We watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show. We loved Carol Burnett. I think Carol Burnett was a different beast as far as sketch comedy goes, because it was more about spending time with those people. It was like, it was a group of people who were clearly enjoying each other in a very warm way. And it was just a wonderful thing to spend an hour of your week with some people who didn't hate each other.
Well, and when I think about sort of, especially as a young female, I loved Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball and Tracy Ullman. Like those were, but it's true. Those were very joyful comedians. I never really kind of saw myself like that, but physical comedy, was a place that I found a bit of a home in terms of and you talk about this when you talk about Chris Farley, you talk about how physicality in and of itself can be funny, either at, to a detriment of the person doing it, or, also as an elevation. I want to talk about, Jonathan pointed out this kind of thread of, you had to watch a lot of people get successful as you were kind of around them. And I wonder, obviously, hindsight is 2020, but, as an actor, that's kind of like what you have to get used to. My thought is that if you're a writer, that you're worth more because you're creating your own material. Whereas as an actor, it's just like, who wants to use this tissue? But what was that like for you? Do you remember, were there particular things that stung more? Or was it just like, this is my life and this fucking sucks?
No, well, first of all, as much as I love the kids in the hall as friends, I wanted my own show, and they had their own show. And I was like, can you just give me one of your seasons? I don't know what I wanted. Can you guys just call me up and say, hey, they've given us another season. Do you want to just take it over? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want them to not have a show. I want them to also have their show, but I also have, I don't know, do they have extra money they're not using? But it's weird. I have a weird relationship to that. You are exactly right. I watched so many Friends, Dana Carvey and Chris Farley, and of course, Adam Sandler, and even Conan become, huge around me. But I always had two feelings about showbiz that are unjustified. One, that I knew from a young age, they always need something else. Whatever's working right now, even if it's your best friend and now they're gone from your life because they're a big star, which is another thing that happens, they go away because they enter another world. And that's the hardest part, is that, you won't see them much for a couple years because they have work and their plate is very full, overfull. That's the hardest part, is that you have to sort of say goodbye to your friend. That, and I always knew this, in a couple years, when everything calms down, I will get to see them again. I don't know why I knew that. I don't know. I just knew that there's a rhythm to this business, and it can work in your favor if you can be patient and calm. One, it always needs new things. So if you're not the flavor today, and you haven't been the flavor, and your ideas haven't gone over for the last 5 years, that doesn't mean year 6 won't be the year it turns. They always need something. What else have you got from me? And that's a great thing. You have to keep trying to get better at what you do, or keep asking what is a better idea or the best way to make the most of what I'm proposing, suggesting, idea, book, show, movie. You keep trying to be better at it, but things will hit over time. I just knew that. And I also knew that when I said goodbye to my friend, because they suddenly appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone, which, believe me, that actually happened numerous times. And I was like, that's goodbye for 5 years, 7 years, whatever. It's okay. I will miss them, but we'll see them again. And so I just knew those two things. And those are kind of great things to know that make you less jealous, less of a feeling of being left behind, because I don't know. I was always happy my friends did well, but there was just, like you say, a feeling of they are going away now. And as for me, I never pursued the level of fame that I've been gifted by the opportunities that I didn't earn, which number one being Saul Goodman. I mean, Mayim, I did not deserve the opportunity to do that. And I certainly didn't deserve the wonderful writing in Better Call Saul. And I would read those scripts, Mayim, and I would think, somewhere there's a Juilliard trained actor who is, doing a commercial.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Masterclass.
We have learned so much about so many different kinds of topics from Masterclass. Most recently, about intentional eating from Michael Pollan's class, which taught us to rethink our relationship with food and the benefits of communal dining. Love that one. This fall, learn from the best to become your best with Masterclass. From leadership to effective communication to cooking. Whether you're watching Masterclass on TV, listening in audio mode in the app, or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors. They're going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes from the world's best? Easily hundreds to thousands thousands of dollars. With a masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus masterclass instructors. Learn how to negotiate a raise with Chris Voss or manage your relationships with Esther Perel. There are over 180 classes to choose from, with new classes added every month. As we mentioned, Michael Pollan's intentional eating class we loved. Also, don't forget Neil deGrasse Tyson's class on scientific thinking and communication. That one left me feeling smarter and more inquisitive with every second that I watched. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and your work. If you own a business or you're a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders.
And right now, our listeners will get an additional 15% off an annual membership at masterclass.com/break.
Get 15% off right now at masterclass.com/break.
Masterclass.com/break. Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by ZocDoc.
You know that feeling you get when you finally find the thing you've been searching for on the internet? After spending hours researching and reading thousands of reviews, you find it, the thing, like whatever it is, sparkly disco pants, designer dog hoodies, whatever it is. The thing that checks literally all your boxes and it has 5 stars. Oh, and it can arrive in 48 hours. So why is it that you can get the most random, wonderfully reviewed thing from around the world in just 2 days? But if you want to see a good doctor, it can take forever to get an appointment, not to mention, how do you even know that they're really good? Thankfully, there's a way. It's called ZocDoc, a place to find and book great doctors who actually have amazing reviews, many with appointments available within 24 hours. ZocDoc is a free app where you can find amazing doctors and book appointments online. We're talking about booking appointments with thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed doctors and specialists. You can filter specifically for ones who take your insurance, are located near you, and treat almost any condition you're searching for. These docs all have verified reviews from actual real patients, not bots. The average wait time to see a doctor booked on ZocDoc is between 24 and 48 hours. That's it. You can even score same-day appointments. That's my favorite thing. Once you find the doc you want, you can book them immediately with just a few taps. No more waiting awkwardly on hold with a receptionist.
Go to ZocDoc.com/breakdown and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/breakdown.
ZocDoc.com/breakdown. I mean, is that not imposter syndrome? Like, I can't imagine anybody else besides you.
I know, but I think it's legit. I mean, yes, it is imposter syndrome, but it's true too. I mean, it really is true that people, maybe I earned other things that I didn't get. Okay. But those scripts, that show, on one page, I would be doing almost pure comedy for 2.5 pages. Saul in a cell phone store, conning people, making a commercial. We had so much fun doing some of those scenes where it's just pure silliness. It's as close to sketch comedy as you can get without breaking the world and the logic of the world. And then, 4 pages later, a beautiful interior scene that is utterly earnest, that asks me as a performer to dig deeply into my own deepest pain and to share that in a quiet, contemplative way. I mean, that's crazy. And that happened over and over. I would pick up scripts and be like, page 12, I'm doing comedy. Page 30, I'm doing, this deeply painful, utterly honest drama. And then, maybe a romantic scene, a quiet, simple, actually, in the end, the scenes I loved so much and thanked the writers for so much were the scenes that were just two people just trying to navigate, me and Ray Seahorn, she played Kim Wexler, the romantic, partnership they had. Those simple scenes that felt a little bit more like it's just time passing as these two people share a journey together. Those were my favorite scenes in the end.
They're beautiful scenes. They're just so moving, and they ground everything else in the show so nicely. Like, yeah, I can understand that.
But also, I can't help but note that that didn't exist when you started auditioning. That didn't exist when you were writing. That didn't exist when you were in the rooms of SNL, because television was so different. I mean, when I was a teenager, there were 3 networks, and then came along Fox, right? Like, and it's like, what is this 4th network, right?
Yeah. This is never going to work.
Right. It was a completely different industry. And so also the notion that shows like Breaking Bad, were this sort of golden era of television where we were saying, oh, we actually want more, from our media. It used to be that, when I finished working on a sitcom, I was on a sitcom for 5 years, that finished when I was 19. And it was like, no one will hire you because you were on a sitcom. So you need to go away. And it's true. And now you have like movie actors, right? Like, oh, I'll do a little run on this sitcom. So I think that's also, I mean, if you don't mind me waxing poetic about your career, it's kind of like where you ended up, it had to be created for you to thrive in it.
Yeah.
Because it simply did, like, the industry could only hold you in these small compartments, And it wasn't until like the industry created this opening where it's like, oh, there's a place for someone with your intelligence, your comedic timing, and your heart. And that's what made you the comedian you were, was your anger and your pain. And now here is a vehicle where you get to shine in all of it, because that's what we deserve to see.
You're right. The business fundamentally changing made it even possible at all. And it wasn't something you could imagine. I guess there was, some wonderful writing in feature films and in plays when, in yesteryear. But it is amazing how, there's just the landscape of shows and podcasts and, feature films, everything has spread wide in a great way. And I'm the beneficiary of that. I got very lucky. But honestly, you understand what I'm saying, where like, it's one thing to get to be the lead in a show, and that happens, and it's almost always feels like a gift and a magical lottery win for anybody. I think the layering, the levels of writing, the quality that I was gifted and handed is the part that I think it's a justified imposter syndrome. Like, you do not deserve this. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Go do your best. That's how you pay it back, is value it,
I'm really interested in your work ethic in particular. And I want to start here and then ask you a question working backwards. There's a really cool, towards the end of your comedy drama.
Yeah.
You have this notion, like, even after Breaking Bad, which, as you described, was kind of, it was sort of sporadic, meaning it wasn't an everyday, all day, this is where I go, this is where I live. You were kind of dropped in these like beautiful, nuggets. But when you moved into, oh, this is my vehicle and this is my full-time existence, it's almost like you didn't even know the question to ask. And you talk about this conversation you had with Bryan Cranston, and you said, you were like, I don't really get, like, what do you do? And there's this really awesome conversation, which I relate to so much. And what it was basically, he told you, like, you get up early, you prepare, and you get there early to set. And at lunch, you run your lines, and then make sure you have something to eat. Like, ask craft service to like make you a sandwich so that you can basically keep going, through the end of your day, and go home and learn your lines for the next day. And then you said to him, like, what about weekends? And he was like, oh, you basically study all the way to the airport on the plane. Try and relax as much as you can, but like, this is your life,
Yeah.
And the way you summed it up, you said, so basically you learn lines, rehearse, act, eat some food, learn lines, act again, cram some more food down your pie hole, learn lines, fall asleep, and on weekends you don't stop working. And he said, yeah. And he said, work all the time and you'll be able to do it. And I thought, like, it's both like it's funny and it's also very true. And it's why we go away. It's why people lose us, because if you want to keep it going without cocaine, and you literally, you're like, and then I did cocaine, if you don't want to use that as your vehicle, that is the formula. You cannot have a social life. You can barely be an active partner and parent, right? And I see that you have, and I want to, kind of get to where that led you, but that's the work ethic that you ended up kind of arriving at. And I don't mean to be like, why did you do cocaine? But also I'm very interested, not for salacious reasons, but I'm very interested in how that work ethic, as an adult, as a parent, how that operates for you. Like what were those years like?
It was hard. It was conflicting to me. I mean, it felt like there's no way I could be a good dad if I was working that hard in another city. And my wife, luckily my kids were a little older, 13 and 15 at the time that I started that job. And they both, as I share in the book, were part of the decision. As much as a kid can be a part of it. Whenever people say that, my kids told me it was okay. It's like, yeah, well, they were kids. You just said the word kids. So what do you mean? But as much as they could be seemingly aware of what they were agreeing to, they said, you should do this, Dad. You should go do that opportunity. And my wife, who is in the business and who does know how shit works, said, do it if you'd like. You don't have to. If you say no, I won't, either way, do whatever you want. We'll make it work if you want to do it. But there's, in my mind, having come from a family where my dad wasn't around and my mom was an awesome person, but, just at the edge of her abilities to keep things going, it felt like I was probably not doing the right thing, but maybe there could be some good lessons as the kids got older and had to be a little more self-sufficient. But honestly, it felt like this could really explode everything. My marriage, my family, me, but also, I don't know. It was a tough choice to make, and feel like generally it worked out great. I think if the kids had been a little bit younger, it would have been a bigger damage, a greater damage to my family. But it was hard. It was hard. I mean, when you don't see your partner and you're not helping, those years are still a lot of work. Obviously, little kids is just tons of work. But when you get into the teen years, it's still a lot of work. Driving around and school functions and, you just want to be there. I mean, when I would come home, Mayim, I would make a point of not having an office. I wouldn't leave the house. When I would come home for a couple months at a time, because those writing preparation would take months for Better Call Saul seasons, one of the reasons it took so long to shoot that show. But I would sit in the living room where everyone was walking by, and I would sort of make that my desk. So I was like, when I'm home, I'm going to be real easy to find. And I'm going to say yes to everything. If I, something at Temple Israel, my kids' school, something, whatever it is, I'm there. I'm going to drive them. I'll show up. If they need a parent, I'll do it. And otherwise, I'm sitting here. If I said, I want my kids to, if you ask my kids, where's your dad right now? They can tell you. He's sitting on the couch in the living room. He's got books. He's got his computer. He's got notepads, and he's just sitting there. Or he's walking the dog. Those are the two things he's doing. I know where he is. And I'm gonna see them. They're gonna walk in front of me to go to the kitchen. They gotta walk through this room. And so I'm gonna hopefully be able to see what's going on, help them, be a part of their lives. But it was a tough call, and it worked out. I'd say overall.
And obviously it tugs at my heartstrings also when I think about how you write about your dad. One of the things you said is like he was never there. And like in my head I was like, where was he? But I get it. Like, and so the notion also of that being such a conscious decision, is really touching, especially for us as working, we both are divorced, but as working parents especially, and ours are 15 and I also have an 18-year-old. Not to like further tug at the heartstrings, but you had a near fatal heart attack recently. And, when I think about your work ethic, obviously people have heart attacks for all sorts of reasons, but I wonder, did that slow you down? Did it feel like, oh, this is, my body forcing me to shift?
It was as major as it could be without dying. That's the truth. I mean, if Rosa Estrada had not been there to do CPR and get her AED out of the trunk of her car, if she hadn't been there, I would not be here right now. Or if I was here, I wouldn't be talking in a way that made sense. And yet it was minor in that I disappeared mentally. I was not there. I did not go through, I didn't see a light. I didn't go through a traumatic emotional journey. I just went away and I came back a week later, and I sort of slowly came back over the next couple months. The biggest thing it's made me question is something you brought up earlier, and it is my work ethic. To some extent, my work ethic, which you can say is, appreciable, laudable, is also a cover for something, not being able to sit still. And I became very aware of that coming out of this experience of near death, of when you just work, you sort of almost don't make memories, I think. If all you do is add to your list of to-do things and ask yourself every second of every day, what do I need to get done? What do I need to do? What am I not doing right now that I should be doing? And there are times in life when that's all you can do. If you have a kid with some medical problem, if you have financial challenges, there are times and years in people's lives where all they can do is just go, I can't dwell on my life. I can't put some space in here. I can't meditate. I have to every second go do something else. I have to make something else fix. I have to fix something else. I have to make something happen. And I understand that. But the heart attack really made me know that if you just live that way, you don't really live. You don't really, it's like you didn't do any, it's like you weren't here. It's weird. It's like you were a machine or you're like a motorcycle that went through life. And was that, I didn't see them go by. I just heard them. I've thought a lot about that, and I've thought a lot about how do I slow down and take things in. Now, also, I have that gift because of financial security. But even everybody has to confront that, I think. And I think that was the perspective that incident gave me.
I want to give a shout out to the work you're doing through the MTPF Fund, the Union Solidarity Coalition. You and David Cross are auctioning off a dinner on eBay, which I think the bidding is quite pronounced as of now. But I wonder if you can just speak a little bit to the importance and the significance of the strike, which has recently ended, but in terms of the work that you believe, is so important to emphasize for people who may not know a lot about labor or why writers strike and things like that.
Yes. My comment to people would be, yes, it's true. I don't need money. You're right. But I also know what it's like to make a living as a staff writer, which I did for many years. And I have many, many friends who are staff writers and show runners. And I've done shows and I interact closely with the writers because I come from writing. So I know that life has gotten harder and harder over time, as it usually does. But also it's been exponentially made harder by streaming and by payment formats that have been warped by the changes in the industry and time. So we needed to strike to reset the structures by which people get paid so that life that I lived many years ago and for many years, and that so many of my friends and even family members work in, is a viable life that you can make enough money to, raise your kids and have a house and pay for groceries. And we needed to do this strike. I know it when people hear the numbers that fly around regarding Hollywood, they think everyone's a millionaire. Everyone is not a millionaire. And a lot of the wonderful stuff you see written is by staff writers, and they need these supports and structures. And the same goes for our actors. And Mayim, you've seen the stories, you guys, of people who've been guest actors, 5 times in a year, and then they don't have enough. They haven't made enough to have their insurance, which is crazy. Because if you're an actor who's getting guest starring roles, you're damn good. You're a pro. And if you're getting that many in a year, you should easily be able to meet the bar of getting your insurance by SAG. So now we have to carry on the strike and get new structures in place for actors as well. It was a crucial strike. We needed to do it. And I'm thankful that we made the gains that we've made.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. I think a lot of people have been emboldened to kind of say the things that people used to not say out loud. And I think the internet has helped people do that. It'd be like, you're making your living as a clown. What do you expect? And like, how are people supposed to pay their rent if the writers are striking? And I understand those perspectives. I hear them a lot. But I do appreciate you talking about that, the fact that this is an industry. It's
Mayim, I totally agree. Tons of people were so punished by this strike. The AMPTP should never have made us strike for this long. They should have. The things that they gave on were the things that we talked about from day one, that they said, we will never, ever, ever give in on any of those things. Why did they make this strike take so long? I think that they had ulterior motives, to want the industry to reshape itself by going through this pain. That's the only reason I can think that the AMPTP decided to let the strike go this long. And in the course of that, they punished so many people in other industries. I don't know why they why they were okay with that.
I don't think it ended because Yom Kippur was coming. I think it ended because people wanted their Drew Barrymore back. But anyway, were you ever my waiter at Ed DeBevick's? Because I went there a lot.
Oh, in Chicago. I was in Chicago.
You were in Chicago. I probably was in the Chicago one at one point.
Oh, then maybe.
I used to go to the one out here. It was sort of the place where a lot of us, before drugs became the thing that all of the Hollywood kids did, we used to hang out at Ed DeBevick's.
Oh, that was much healthier.
One of the things that has, I guess, happened since your heart attack, is this really beautiful creative project that both of your children have contributed to. But in particular, what strikes me about this book is how beautiful it is visually. And you apparently have raised a very talented artist. Erin, welcome to our breakdown.
Hi.
Erin, I was saying that we were talking a bit about your dad's heart attack and work ethic and, some of that sort of mental shift of, what it's like to focus on other things and things that, bring joy and peace. And this book, Zillet, is, a product of obviously your childhood and your brother's. But one of the things that is most striking about this book is visually how beautiful it is. And you clearly are a really talented artist, but also you put such care and thought into illustrating these poems. And I guess I'd like to know, when did you start drawing? Because, for those of us with children, we're like, how do we get our kid to be like Erin?
That's so sweet. Thank you. I kind of have drawn my whole life. I used to love drawing our cats, and I loved reading cartooned things like the Mutts and the Peanuts. Those were super easy reads for a young kid that inspired me to maybe make my own characters and have a simple cartooning style that is approachable when you're that age. But I took this really awesome art class when I was young called Wizard of Art here in Los Angeles. And their method is that they set you up with everything you need, and then they don't bother you. They just walk around the room and they give you advice and pointers that are appropriate for your age and your skill level, but they don't tell you what to do. And that was always a really frustrating thing as a kid, but also I think something that helped me grow into myself as an artist.
And I can't help but marvel at the fact that, Bob, you essentially, your wife is in the industry, and, you have so much input. She has so much input into sort of work life. And so I also see this book as sort of an extension of an ethic that it seems like your family has, I don't want to say perfected, but has kind of gotten down, because there's something to working together that can be really problematic, but also really beautiful things can come out of it. And I think this book is an example of that. I wonder if you each can speak to if you had to interact a lot, or if it was kind of like the poems were their own thing and then Erin got to do her illustrations, or if there had to be collaboration in the family.
It is hard to collaborate within a family, Mayim. I think you guys both know that. Do you know that?
Yes.
My wife is a manager and a producer. She is extremely opinionated. She's very intelligent. She has tons of experience, so her opinion matters, and is usually really spot on and smart, and definitely should be listened to every single time. But also, as an artist, you're discovering something. You need some room to grow before it's criticized, and so it's a give and take that we've figured out, I think, good and well enough over the last 26 years as a couple. And then with the kids, it's a similar thing, and it's one of the things I was trying to show them is, and by the way, my son Nate wrote about 10 of these poems. He's a comedy writer. So I didn't want to call the book Zillet and Other Important Rhymes by the Odenkirks. I felt like people just, I thought they would appreciate more that I led the way, and that my daughter, she did the illustrations. No one else did them. And I just didn't want to credit the whole family, but everyone did contribute, and we did find a way to comment on that. It's tough. All I can say is it's tough. Well, a lot of couples in America have businesses together, and so you have to figure out the way forward. I mean, one of the reasons it's hard is whether you're a parent or a sibling or a part of a couple, you want your partner to care about how you feel about the project, not about the project itself. And that can be hard when you're doing the project together. It's like two separate questions. Erin, how are you feeling about your artwork and about the project and the work? Or Erin, what do you think of this one specific drawing? And here's my critique of it.
As a writing partner, it was great to have him so close, but as a dad, it could have been, you know, a little bit overbearing at times. And I think part of what helped was seeing them as different modes. I think he was talking earlier about the love you need from a writing partner and the critique you need from a writing partner, and then the love and critique you need from family or from people who are close to you, as sort of being different things and finding ways to find them both in the same person. And one of the signs of that relationship developing is me starting to call him Bob in emails and even in person sometimes, around other people, around our editors and stuff, as like, we're working together. This is how I feel about something, Bob. And then maybe we go out for coffee after, and I'm like, so what do you think of the meeting, Dad? How was it for you? But yeah, it was, I mean, ultimately a great experience.
What did you learn about Bob from working with him that you didn't know about him as dad?
I learned that he can get, I think that as dad, when he says something that sounds like he means it, I really believe it as like a truth that he holds to be true, and one maybe that I should hold true also. But I saw when we were working together, often he would feel one way really strongly about something, and then within 5 or 10 minutes kind of fold on it a little bit. Not that he was totally wrong, but just that it took him a while to maybe see like a different perspective on it. And that was super enlightening, both as his daughter and as a work partner.
I have a personal question, and then we'll let you go. My kids don't watch me on TV. They are annoyed by it. They think it's ridiculous. Like they always freaked out when people would recognize me. They used to, like, my little one used to cry because it was like, why are people talking to my mom? And people always assume that like they watch The Big Bang Theory or like all this stuff, and they didn't. I'm curious, have you watched your dad? Is it weird? Like, is it like, that's my dad, why is he acting like that?
It's both. Yeah. It took me a while. I didn't start watching stuff until I was like 13 or 14, kind of because of the appropriateness of it, but also just because of my own desire. I think for a long time it was difficult for me to see him as an actor and not just as my dad on a screen in a funny outfit saying something like he would say it if he was happy. And it wasn't maybe until I was a bit older and we were kind of further into Saul that I started to be able to see him playing this character with such reality that I felt the character and not just my dad. But that's a really unique situation to have and a unique perspective. And ultimately it doesn't turn me away from things. It's more just like, oh, my dad's on screen. It doesn't feel like I see the character is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That was really more just for me personally, because I remember when my kids realized that I could do accents, just because that's something that some actors do. And so they used to have me read their bedtime stories in like different accents. But I don't think they connected that like my mom's an actor, that's why she does this. They were just like, oh, she's useful to make us laugh. So I think there's like, it's almost like there's other skills besides me being on television that are more interesting to them. Anyway, I was just curious.
I agree.
Well, Erin, we wish you only good things with Zillet and all of the other incredible things that I'm sure you'll do. But really, as someone who also grew up reading comic books, and I was raised on R. Crumb and all those artists, I really appreciated the specific artistry, and you clearly have a really great catalog of an understanding of both comic and sort of also just beautiful illustrative work. So thank you.
Great compliment. Thank you so much.
It's really been such a pleasure. We recommend Zillet and Other Important Rhymes. If you have children, if there's a child in you that still wants to laugh and dream and create, please get Zillet and Other Important Rhymes. It's been really such a pleasure to talk to you. We think you're awesome for everything about you that people see and even the things that people don't. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, you guys. Mayim, thank you. Jonathan, thank you.
Worry juice. I've been using up my worry juice. The tank is running low. If I keep gushing over little things, I'll have no juice left to show. So I'm going to pat my little worries on the head and give them a nap. Then when there's something big to worry about, I'll have juice left on tap.
That's great.
I mean, this book is It is. It's very adorable. The fact that he wrote it with his kids is the cutest thing ever. And the fact that like his daughter illustrated it is just, it blows my mind. And I was very touched by speaking to him and also speaking to his daughter.
I loved what he said about wanting his children to feel like they're the type of people who could have a book published. And what I got from it is that it's all about the creative process, you know? It's like, oh, they could be the type of people who have a book published, but also like the work of publishing a book is actually in sitting down and writing. And so he trained them, or he encouraged them to know what it is to like sit down and be creative.
But it's like an extension of his whole career, right? You just like, you keep going, you sit down, you do the work, you put it down. If it's not working, you rework it. You enjoy what you're doing in some way and have it be meaningful. Like it really is full circle.
Totally full circle. And there's something about getting them to do the work. It's like less about, oh, there's a book published on the shelf, and more, you know, you deserve to be heard. Your ideas deserve the attention.
Can you imagine working with your child on a book?
I think he would. I think the creative collaboration would be a challenge, because I think he would want to. You know, I don't know that he would believe that it was going anywhere.
Oh, if I gave my kids a deadline, it would be over. They'd be like, I'm not doing this. You boss us around all the time.
And there was a publisher involved. So like, I wanted to ask Erin, was there a work back schedule? You know, like what happened if she missed a deadline? Did he creative direct? Did he give notes on like the different drawings? He's like, you know, this dog, I would like to see the tail 1.5 inches longer.
It's really, I hope, and you know, he's not asking me, but I kind of wish he would publish like a facsimile copy of the old time rhymes, because not just because I'm curious about the ones that didn't make it in, but I'm so curious how they changed or evolved over time. I mean, I wrote songs and poems for my kids. That's like sometimes I'll still sing just to like, you know, make them laugh. But you know, if I had to actually publish them, I would really want it to change and be more refined. And anyway, she's an incredibly talented artist, and I'm very curious to see what she also chooses to do with her life. I also love that his son, you know, is a writer as well, and just what an interesting family. I mean, it's for anyone who knows about the Glass family that J.D. Salinger concocted, I kind of think of the Odenkirks as a modern-day Glass family.
We didn't ask Bob what he learned about Erin working with her that, you know, was outside of her being his daughter.
Well, the way that he was watching her speak and practically mouthing the words with her like the best stage dad ever indicated that they clearly have a very well fleshed out relationship. And while he didn't go into necessarily tremendous detail about his childhood, you can see he's doing a lot of reparative work. It's really beautiful as a father. So very, very pleasantly surprised. We've spoken to a lot of comedians, and I kind of thought he'd have like a real surly edge to him, but he was a really, really gentle guy. And I just feel really, really lucky that we got to hear such interesting insight from him.
There's a couple things that really hit me in that interview. The first was his notion that Hollywood, or even I took it to be the world, always needs something new. And if you're not the flavor of the week or the month, or he said even the year or the last 5 years, the sense of optimism and calm he had in that, to not be like, take it personally, to not be like, oh, there's something defective in me because all my friends are getting these massive opportunities and I grew up with them, and when is my turn? There seemed to be like a divine sense of serenity in that I wanted to ask him, like, where did that come from? Like, you just always knew that? There wasn't a ping ever? And like, I don't know, there was a sense that he was maybe a little polished towards the positive, but like, I'm curious, like, did it always feel like that to him? Did he always have that knowing, or was there a moment where it was like some of those, you know, tougher feelings of jealousy, or when is it my turn to, you know, would come? But he had like the sense of calm and serenity that I was really interested to understand more about.
Yeah, I think also there's, for writers like that, they are used to creating beauty for other people, meaning, the work that he did with Chris Farley and, like the work that he did with those kind of comedians, like you live in the shadows in a lot of ways. And many of those kinds of writers, they're never seen, the way they want to be seen. So I think that, the beauty in his memoir, which is entitled Comedy, 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 Drama, it shows like you keep chipping away at it and you keep chipping away at it and other things will come.
You had one of the most, I think, beautiful summations of his career trajectory as it related to the evolution of TV's history and like the development of, the golden era of television. And what struck me about that was hearing in the book how he started in stand-up comedy and kind of knew that he didn't fit there. And he described it as there was a lot of polo shirt guys doing observational comedy that didn't have the edge that he had. And he also wasn't as extreme as some of the guys who would come on and sort of, like a Sam Kinison was probably before his time, but like that level of edge where it was, shock.
Explosive.
And so he didn't fit in either of those realms. And so he didn't see himself. And when I was reading about the evolution of his comedy writing and like Mr. Show and the Ben Stiller Show, and he's like trying to find himself, but like none of those are like the types of hits. He calls, a lot of his success like cult classics, where they're successful and appreciated by the people in the community after the fact, but not necessarily big commercial success. And then to hear like he just continued to become more of himself. And then the world changed
totally
so that the version of him that he became had a place. And there was these two parallel trajectories. One is the world changing. One is him not trying to be something that he's not. Even while all of his contemporaries are finding their place in the world, he is almost not finding his true place in the world. And to me, that was like, I don't know, it hit me so viscerally because you just continue to be yourself and discover over and over again who you are. And even when all signs point to that there is no place for you in the world, he continued to become himself. And then the world had a spot for him.
I mean, it's
outside of a timeline that he wanted necessarily.
Totally. But you know what? It's not dissimilar from when I think about Jonathan Cohen.
Oh, do tell. Do I get a summation like that? I would like a summary to the level of Bob Odenkirk summary.
One of the things that you excel in your non-breakdown life is you see things before they happen. And there's actually a job for that. It's called being a futurist. And there have been many times that I have seen and I have witnessed, a kind of intellectual and creative foresight. And, while I don't know that Bob Odenkirk is tapping into the universe in the same ways that you are, I think it's really interesting that sometimes that is how things evolve.
Very interesting. I actually think Bob Odenkirk is tapping into a sense of the universe and that he may not attribute it to that, or he doesn't necessarily articulate it like that. But I found that his calm and centeredness now and his presence of mind to not try to be something that he wasn't and to constantly navigate towards.
Because you can get lost in that angst.
That's what I mean is that, it's so easy to be like, oh, these polo shirt guys are having the success that would keep, food on my table.
Right.
But he's like, I'm not that.
Right.
And, these more extreme comics are like breaking through and getting headlines maybe, and that would put food on my table, but I'm also not that. And to just constantly navigate towards, well, what am I, even when what I am is not clear to him, maybe? Because as he said, like there was no version of a Better Call Saul character that existed. And like that level of foresight, that little moment that he had is of, I will be the most engaging person in a drama. Or talking about how the Better Call Saul scripts and even the Breaking Bad scripts, there would be like 2.5 lines of comedy, then drama, then like these tender scenes. Like that mixture never existed. And so to just continue to hone something in the absence of an outlet, because that's truly what he was.
Yeah.
I think is a sign we can all live by.
One of the most patient men in Hollywood, I would say, Bob Odenkirk.
Amazing. Yeah.
All right. Follow us on Bialik Breakdown.
On Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram at Bialik Breakdown. And
subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't.
Do that.
Why haven't you subscribed yet?
This is a fun one to watch. Actually, he's got a lot of emotion in his
it is
in
fun.
his storytelling. So yeah.
Let us all be patient and find ourselves.
Yes, and from our breakdown to the one we hope you never have. We'll see you next time.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD or two. One fiction, one and now she's gonna break down